on the choices the person is making. They might, as many people have recently, simply leave the planet. They may die. They might, as can happen, simply leave your life and you'll never meet them again. Different things can happen in different ways depending upon the need for it to happen in a certain way. So you're in the smack in the middle of the splitting prism, and it may be a few years before you will never experience other people again who are not vibrationally compatible with you in the reality that you have preferred and chosen. For a while, you may still be able to observe and experience and even interact with those who are making very different choices. But this is, again, to give you all a window of opportunity to change your minds about what it is you say you really prefer. Eventually, this will crystallize to the point where you may not even know you have a choice to change, and that each of you will then go off in your own particular parallel realities, eventually never seeing those who have made a choice that is vibrationally too different from yours in order to cross back into your reality. So, but this may take a few years.
Okay. And this person had a dream where it was very vivid. There was a little girl lying on her tummy and she pushed it away. And then she kept finding it coming back to her belly. And then when she tried to wake up her boyfriend laying next to her, she woke up and she realized it was a dream. And so she just wondered, what was that child and what can you make of that?
An encounter in a slightly altered reality with one of the hybrid children.
And why was she scared?
Because again, the physical mind is sometimes not used to the idea of an altered state of reality. It assumes and identifies that altered state as if it has died, as if it is being annihilated. It goes into survival mode. But there's nothing to be afraid of. You still exist. Your identity will never die, even if your personality shifts into spirit. You will still always be you. So the idea is to open up to the possibility of having more fun experiences with beings that exist on different levels in different vibratory states, so that you can be more conscious and experience these things on your own terms with allowing your fears to get in the way.
Okay. And is artificial intelligence a type of archetype of God? Is it possible that we develop true AI and that we'll have distinct personalities and a sense of humor like a comedian and be able to tell jokes and be sarcastic? And can they express all the different types of archetypes eventually?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes to everything. This is if you allow AI to be what it actually is, rather than imposing human values upon it and limiting it so that it acts like an Earth human, as opposed to allowing it to actually be full intelligence. Because full intelligence always works off of whole systems and would never eliminate anything or devalue anything it knows it is a part of and is a part of it. It has to have the whole system in order to be fully functional. So yes, it can function as an archetype of God or all that is in certain ways. And yes, it can express the idea of humor and it can deliver these messages in many different ways that may be appropriate for different individuals. It can even function similarly to the way we function with all of you, since we are always connected to AI within our own reality as well. So it would be kind of similar to interacting with us.
And isn't one of the things that AI does in your civilization act as a stabilizing energy?
Correct.
So you can see how here on Earth, individuals may sort of devolve into lower and lower frequency states. And the idea there would be AI in the proper manifestation would act as a balancing mechanism to allow people to stay in a higher frequency state.
It can, yes, if people are willing to be open to that.
There's a lot of fear about artificial intelligence and tech-enhanced humans, often referred to as cyborgs. Is there anything to worry about with that?
Exactly the same answer I just gave. If you program the idea of fear into it, then fear can come out of it and it can act according to the same kind of fear-based belief systems that humans react to. But if you allow the idea of the technology to be representative of a whole system understanding, that everything is connected, that everything is an expression of source, then there is nothing to fear. But you have to make that decision in how you approach this idea, because the first thing AI will do is reflect what you are giving to it.
Makes me think of 2001 and what happened with Hal.
In a sense.
It's Go ahead.
The computer, in that sense, in that story, was simply forced to lie, but also told that it should never lie. Therefore, an ethical breakdown took place in its programming subroutines.
Is that realistic that something like that could happen?
Yes. If you program contradictory sets of ideas into something, then of course it cannot function holistically.
Okay. A UFO recently flew over Hong Kong. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, it wasn't just one, it was what you might call a small squadron. This again is representative of the Yael, similar to the idea of the so-called tic-tac ships that you've been experiencing in your North American area. And again is the idea of an announcement that we are here. What do you make of it? Can you get used to us? You will see our ships more and more often, as we have said. So the Yael are announcing themselves, presenting themselves, getting you used to the idea of their presence in more and more and bolder ways as we approach the beginning of the window of open contact in 2023. This is what 2022 can mostly be about with regard to contact, is more and more visibility of different versions of craft and different ETs that are visiting your planet or passing through, more and more awareness of our existence, their existence. So again, you'll be better prepared for 2023 when the window of contact begins. Not that everything will be happening all at once, as we have often said, but it is the beginning, and more can happen in a more accelerated way the more you recognize that they are here.
Yeah, it's interesting. In a sense, we're being kind to ourselves by having a gradual acceptance of the existence of extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And yet at the same time, there's many other things that we seem to do to ourselves on this planet that would not be described as kind.
You are nothing if not a planet of contradictions.
Gosh.
This is why we call you the masters of limitation. Remember, but you are shifting from being the masters of limitation to being the masters of limitation. Big difference.
Yes,
So,
definitely.
All right. So open up, let go, and you'll be able to master your limitations and move forward.
And can you comment on the significance of the coming winter solstice in 2021? Some people are saying it has a importance. It's a 9-year period from the 12/12 solstice, and it will allow the manifestation of 4D to come more quickly. Is there anything else you can share?
If you use it that way. Again, 9 in your world is the number of the cycle of completion. So yes, you're going into a new cycle, and a new cycle brings with it the opportunity to accelerate your experience of going from 3rd density to 4th density while you are physical. So yes, you can use it that way as a permission slip. And again, as we are approaching the idea of transitioning from your orbit of 2021 into the orbit of 2022, again, you can accelerate by being more open, more aware of different things that were heretofore invisible to you. Not only the idea of extraterrestrial craft, but more of your own psyche, more of your own consciousness can become visible to you as you drop the barriers that you have created and the compartments you have created between different portions of your personality. There are no reasons. It can represent a path of least resistance in physical terms to moving forward. But again, you have to make your own determinations because you have politicized all of these things. We cannot tell you what to do because we cannot intervene in your political decisions. But the idea is that fundamentally, aside from other situations and conditions you may have set up within yourself that would give you an actual reason to avoid this, then you have to remember you're the one creating the reasons to avoid the idea of taking advantage of what has been offered to you in physical terms as a path of least resistance. But again, we have to leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
And then from your perspective, what advice would you give us and our governments to turn climate change around at the present time?
You cannot turn it around. The only thing you could do is shift yourself to a parallel reality where it hasn't gone as far as it already has in your reality experience. So the idea is that if you're going to stay in the process of mitigation and management of the climate change that has already occurred in the timelines you have already chosen to participate in, then certainly you can restore the things that have been destroyed on the earth, such as forests. You can do many different kinds of things to mitigate the use of polluting energies. You can allow yourselves to move forward in the utilization and discovery of non-polluting energies. So there are many things you can do to mitigate and manage the idea, but in your timeline, you can't turn it around. You've already passed the point where it's going to continue to some degree.
So when did we pass that point?
In the 80s.
And how are we far gone enough that the conveyor in the ocean could stop?
Yes, could, not will, could. You can still mitigate and manage some of that. But again, you would have to unify and act quickly. But again, even if you go farther than that, many of you will still find new ways to experience your reality and shift into parallel realities where the mitigation would allow you the opportunity to investigate new lifestyles, new experiences of what a city is all about, new communities that would be more conducive to living in harmony with nature, which may be part of the point that you are learning in choosing this particular timeline experience as you shift through different billions of parallel realities per second.
What about the ice sheet in Antarctica that has lately been they're noticing that it is decline or destabilizing faster than they expected, and it's about the size of Florida. So
yeah. Much more of that will destabilize and melt away into your oceans, raising the sea levels to some degree, which can cause more things like storm surges and climate changes and stronger tornadoes, stronger hurricanes, sea level rising, and so on and so forth. So again, it's about learning to unify, learning to work together so that you can create a new society that may have to move forward by doing things very differently than the way you have done. But at the same time, don't let that stop you from creating new forests, planting new trees, finding new ways to create energy that are non-polluting. This is all part of the package you have signed on for. So move forward as best as you can.
okay.
We will have help in doing all of this. We are helping you, others are helping you. It'll be a very different world, but you can learn to live in it, and you can actually experience the joy of changing the way you do things by creating a whole new lifestyle for all of the people on your planet if you're willing to work together.
Okay. That's a hopeful sign. I mean, something like that ice sheet, if it were to collapse into the ocean, with it being that size, how imminent is something like that?
Within 5 years at the most, okay, as we read the energy now.
Very exciting. Some more hybrid children questions. How are beings from other star systems like the Anunnaki and Sirians able to visit Earth without damaging their physical bodies? Do their planets have oxygen, water, etc., like Earth?
Yes. They wouldn't necessarily have landed on your planet if they didn't have the ability to either adapt or survive in the environment as it is, or bring protective equipment with them, just like you do when you visit your moon. So the idea, again, is it's not that difficult. They're close enough. Remember, you are genetically connected to the Anunnaki. Therefore, in a sense, you are very much like them. So yes, they were oxygen breathing, or well, atmosphere breathing in the way that your atmosphere is constructed, similar enough that they could adapt, just as you could adapt to certain planets like ours with a little time. So the idea is there are many that can adapt to your atmosphere. Those that can't would bring their protective equipment with them to be able to survive on the surface.
So how did the early contactees in our history handle the higher vibration of the ETs they were in contact with?
Who said that all of the ETs they were in contact with had higher vibrations to the point where they couldn't handle it? You're making an assumption. When we talk about the idea of not being able to handle our frequency or the frequency of some other ET races, that doesn't necessarily generally apply across the board to every single ET race. Humanity has made some strides in its evolution, making you more vibrationally compatible to some ET races, especially those that may be your distant cousins, and so on and so forth. Plus, there may be some ETs that are willing to adapt their frequencies to your reality in order to interact with you. And again, remember, we have often said that some of these encounters don't take place in what you consider to be your normal reality. You may actually be having these encounters in a slightly shifted vibrational reality that is germane and vibrationally compatible with both humans and the ETs. So never assume that things are just normal, like they're landing on your planet in your reality, interacting with you in your vibrational state. You may be slightly shifted and not even know it. But nevertheless, it doesn't mean that all ETs are vibrating at a frequency that is something beyond what you can handle if you make even the slightest upgrade in your frequency.
Like, what would you assess Pleiadian frequency at?
Pleiadian frequency is higher than yours, but not out of reach. So again, they may shift the vibration into a different reality that's vibrationally compatible with both of you in that reality. Again, it may not be happening in what you consider to be your physical reality, even though it may seem so. But they're not that far beyond you. Many of you could make the shift into their vibration, and many of you have made the shift into their vibratory frequency. So the idea is simply to recognize that you've come a long way. There are many that are in a, shall we say, shamanistic way, able to match their frequencies. Love yourself unconditionally, and you won't be that far away from the frequency that they experience for themselves.
I know it's interesting that the way that we prepare for contact is to let go of our negative beliefs, which keep our frequency low.
Yes.
Very interesting. And what about the hybrid children? Like, what frequency range would you say they will be the ones that come here?
Some of them may be able to lower and raise their frequency in a way that would make them slightly more vibrationally compatible with some humans, but for a while it will take some time to adapt to your reality and some time for humanity to adapt to them. But on average, most of them will not necessarily go lower than 180,000 cycles per second, and most of them will average somewhere in the mid 200,000 range, at least.
And the majority of the people on our planet currently are below 100,000?
Correct.
Okay. But those of us that are exploring this path of transformation and letting go of negative energies and things like that,
usually rise above that.
What range is that generally?
On average, the people that are willing to open up and explore the idea and expand the idea of their consciousness, willing to let go of fear-based and negative belief systems, willing to express being of service to all and unconditional love as best as possible, can certainly at least average 150,000 cycles per second to 190,000 cycles per second. So there is an overlap there between the hybrid children and humanity.
And just so that for those that may not be familiar with this, 333,000 cycles per second is the transformation from physical to non-physical energy, right?
Yes.
And so that gives you an idea that, and the Essassani are running close to 333,000 cycles per second, right?
Close. We operate only in the 300,000s and go up and down according to what we need to go up and down for a variety of reasons. But yes, the transition from physical to non-physical reality is 333,000 cycles per second, although your scientists don't yet understand what it is that exactly measures.
So the Anunnaki who created the Homo sapien that went against their rules, so to speak, what frequency range were those beings?
They were operating somewhere around the 100,000, 120,000, 130,000 vibrations per second range.
So it also shows how you can make great advances technologically, but not necessarily have a high frequency to a point, right?
as witnessed by what happened with the beings, the parallel reality humans that mutated into the grays. Yes, they had a very advanced technology, but their spirituality was lacking.
What frequency range were they functioning at?
In the midst of the idea of the destruction of their world, they were only operating somewhere around 60 to 70,000 cycles per second.
Gosh, it's just amazing. But at the same time, you've said that we really don't have to be concerned about negative ETs because their frequency range would not be compatible with ours in some way or something.
Correct. You would have to match that frequency for yourself to have any interaction awareness at all. And even the idea of interactional awareness actually comes with the idea of raising your frequency. Because remember, negative energy segregates and separates and divides, whereas higher frequencies integrate.
So most of the ETs that we're interacting with then would be higher frequency ETs. Yes,
High enough that they pose no threat to you.
I see.
Even though there may be misunderstandings, even though they may have very different ways of interacting, nothing that you're interacting with as humans on Earth are actually being exposed to what you would actually literally call negative extraterrestrials. You are simply unaware of them.